Hello, my Italian food fanatics. Today we're going to make a very special omelet. I know I've been doing a lot of omelets recently, but this one is really something cool. All right? It has asparagus, mozzarella, Parmigiano-Reggiano, Parma ham, shaved Parmesan, and also a balsamic reduction that's been put on as a garnish. And it is absolutely fantastic. It is indicative of the food of northern Italy because instead of using olive oil, I'll be using butter instead. So without any further ado, let's get into the kitchen and I'll show you how to make it. It's going to be fantastic. But before I do, please thumbs up, like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, tell your friends. In fact, I think right above my head, one of these places is going to be the subscribe and then hit the bell button, stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. It costs you nothing to subscribe, but I need your subscription. Thank you. Okay, come on. Let's not waste any time. Let's get in there and do this thing. All right, my Italian food fanatics. Today we're going to make a northern Italian omelet. It's going to feature some asparagus. Now, because we're coming into spring, that's why I've decided to use asparagus. Asparagus is at its best for the first 2 weeks of which it's available. It's the sweetest. Everything has a season, and even though here in California our season is basically 12 months long because we import stuff from Mexico and things like that, it didn't used to be that way. And still, the best and the finest produce comes at specific times of the year when it is ideal. So we're going to use this asparagus. We're also going to use Prosciutto de Parma, okay, or Parma ham. And this is the real deal. Whenever you see this DOP sign and the crown, you know it's from Emilia Romagna and the areas in which they can and are authorized to make the real Prosciutto de Parma. And we're going to use balsamic vinegar, aceto balsamico di Modena, from Modena. And we're also going to use Parmigiano-Reggiano cheese that also comes from that same area. We're going to use 3 eggs, and we're going to use that acid, that balsamic vinegar, as a glaze, as something to put over the omelet. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. So let's get started. First things first, we are going to peel our asparagus. Yes, I know, peeling asparagus doesn't seem to be that chic, but the reality is that we want this part to cook at the same rate as this part. I'm going to cut this off about right here. So this portion that is more woody is going to be discarded, so you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to really peel that hard, especially with these thinner asparagus. The reason why I've chosen the thinner asparagus is because it's going to go easier in an omelet. Okay, it's going to look better instead of these big hunking pieces. It's more elegant, let's put it that way. And also, it's going to cook a little bit faster because we are going to par cook this, and we're not going to shock it, all right, like you would, for example, in a restaurant. In a restaurant, there's too much going on, so all of the vegetables get done at the same time. They get shocked in salted water, and then, of course, put in ice in an ice bath, and then later on heated up. I'm not going to do that today because the way in which I'm teaching you how to do this, you can do this in just a couple of minutes in your own home, and you're not feeding tons of different people at the same time. So that's not really that's not necessary for you. All right. If you're feeding more people, well, then you would shock these and you'd blanch them, which means to put in hot water, in boiling water with a little bit of salt, and then you would shock them in ice cold water to retain the color and the freshness. So these are still going to be a little bit crunchy, but they're going to be cooked. So we'll come back when we do that. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we're going to do one other thing. We're going to line up the tops of these asparagus, these spears, just like this. And we're going to give them a cut right about there. And we'll discard these, and we're just going to use the tips like this. All right? Now, we're going to use 6 of them. But I've put in 7 here, 2, 4, 6, 7, because we're going to use the 7th one to test for doneness. All right, so we'll go to the stove now. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we're on the stove. In the same pan that we're going to make our omelet, I put some water, and we're going to add a little bit of salt to that water as soon as it comes to a boil. And I'll be back when that happens. All right, my Italian food fanatics, our water is at a boil. We're now going to add a little bit of salt into the water to season it. And we'll plunge our asparagus tips in that water. We're going to keep them in there for just a couple of minutes while they blanch and become soft. Okay? Now these little anomalies and stuff like that that were part of the peeling process are going to come off, but we'll get rid of those. And what we're going to do is I'm not going to shock them. I think I've told you that before. And the reason for that is because we're going to make the omelet in just a couple of minutes. And so there's really no need to shock the vegetables. We want them to be warm or at room temperature so we don't have to reheat them again. All right? Those are the vagaries of working in a restaurant where you're forced to reheat certain things because you have to make them in larger quantities than you would for an individual plate. Now in a 3 Michelin star restaurant or something that's really super high end, you may in some instances do everything to order like this, that it's as fresh as it can possibly be. And I'm even talking about on the 1 Michelin star level because those people really have something to prove. You're playing an offensive game there, whereas when you get your 3rd star, you're playing a defensive game. You want to keep rather than you want to be aggressive when you're trying to get the 3rd star and be a little bit more conservative once you've established that 3rd star. So we'll come back when these are ready. All right, on our way to making these asparagus tips crisp tender, you can see how we can bend it and it just sort of breaks a little bit like that. That means it's almost done. We're about 30 seconds out. Whoops. And you can taste. About 30 seconds away. Boy, those are delicious. Let me tell you. Wow. I love asparagus. So about 30 more seconds, and we'll put them on a plate. All right, my Italian food fanatics, these asparagus are done. So we'll put them on a plate. Just like this. And you have to remember, too, that these will continue to cook. There's a carryover cooking that takes place. And so consequently, even though I just removed them right as they became crisp tender, they're still going to cook a little bit. All right? We'll come back. We'll clean this pan out and come back. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we are back. We got to do a couple of more things. And one of those things is to make a reduction with a little bit of our balsamic vinegar. We'll put it on the heat, and this will reduce down to a syrupy consistency, and I'll come back when that's happened. All right, my Italian food fanatics, as you can see, the balsamic vinegar is being reduced. We don't want to let it reduce too much, but just about there is going to be perfect for us. Just a little bit more, because when this cools down, it becomes far more viscous, all right? We're seeing it at its most loose point. So that's about it. Once we get about that consistency, you can see that. I don't know, it's difficult to explain, but if you keep doing this, you'll get the hang of it. It's reduced by about half of what it was, so it will end up very syrupy, and we'll deal with that in just a moment. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we're back. We're going to take some of this prosciutto, this Parma ham, and we're going to use a couple of slices here for the omelet. Now, the key here In this case, it's not really going to matter much. But if you ever need to peel these off, you have to do it in a counterintuitive way. Instead of trying to take the meat off of the piece of paper that it's on, you remove the piece of paper from the meat. All right? This stops it from tearing. Now, in this case, we're going to actually cut up the ham. So it doesn't matter, but that's just an FYI for you in the future. Let's give this a cut here and a cut here. We'll put all this on top of one another. And we're going to give them a julienne cut this way. And also a cut this way. Because when this ham is put into the omelet, it's not exactly soft. It's kind of chewy. So that's why we're going to cut it up like this. Now, I don't like to add any heat. I don't like to cook Parma ham. So what we're going to do is add this at the end on the inside. You'll see what I mean in a moment. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we're about to scramble the eggs or mix them up. And we have all of our mise en place ready. Our Parma ham that's chopped up, Parmigiano-Reggiano. I've taken some regular mozzarella and chopped it up. We have our asparagus spears that you saw, and of course our balsamic reduction. So I'll come back with the eggs in just a sec. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we're back with our eggs. We're going to use 3 large size eggs. And as you know, the shells are indicative of the breed of the chicken, not the quality, not whether it's organic or free range, but the breed of the chicken. And the color of the yolks is indicative of the feed that was given the chicken. The yolks can be thus manipulated. The colors can be manipulated to be made a very, very dark orange or a bright yellow like what we have here today. So what I like to do, as you all already maybe know, is crack them first into a bowl. We crack them individually into a bowl to make sure that there's no shells or anomalies or problems, and then we put them into the bowl where we're going to finally mix them up. And the reason why we do that is so that if there's something wrong with the egg here, we can deal with the problem and we don't contaminate other eggs and have to start all over again. So this is our second egg. This is good. And our third and final egg, which is also perfect. All right? No shells, no anomalies, no problems. Now, the key with eggs for an omelet or for anything, if you're going to scramble them, of course, is to scramble very, very well. You see these little parts right here? Those would be white streaks inside of the omelet if we don't continually beat them. So you should beat these up for about 30 seconds. Now, normally, in a regular omelet, I would add salt. But because we have so much cheese, and we have the Parma ham, and we have also boiled or par-cooked the asparagus in salted water, I am going to forego adding salt in here, and now you know the reason why. So let me beat these up and we'll go on to the stove. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we are now back on the stove. I put the pan on high heat, all right? And I believe in keeping with something that you would find more in northern Italy, rather than using olive oil. In this instance, we are going to use butter to make it even more rich. This is going to be one hell of an omelet. And so we'll be back when the pan is at temperature. All right, we're back. I'm going to take a little bit of butter, not too much, maybe a little bit more, and put it in there, and we'll wait for it to foam up. We don't need a lot of butter by virtue of the fact that we're using a non-stick egg pan. And we continue to beat these things up while we're waiting for this butter to foam up and come to temperature. Now, you know what an omelet is. An omelet is moving the pan back and forth with the least dominant hand, and with the more dominant hand stirring in a counterclockwise direction with your fork. So it's 2 motions at the same time, all right? And it happens very, very fast because an omelet cooks in just a matter of seconds, believe it or not. So we don't want the butter to brown, but we do want it to foam up just a little bit, and it is to the zone. So in goes our eggs, and then we begin to mix them up like this. Now, doneness of the eggs is strictly, of course, to your tolerance and your liking. I like mine a little bit runny. In fact, I like them runnier than I show them on these videos, believe it or not. I don't want to gross people out at how underdone or seemingly underdone I like to eat eggs. I like my eggs, when they're poached, to be very, very runny. And I'm not scared of getting salmonella. All right. We're almost there to where I like them, but I'm going to take them a little bit further for you folks. And that's about, that will go a little bit longer, a couple more seconds. That's about right. All right, so that's somewhat underdone, or seemingly underdone. They're actually perfect because they continue to cook. I've turned the heat off. You want to keep them a little bit underdone so that they remain creamy like this, all right? I mean, that's a beautiful thing. That is extremely creamy. And what we'll do is we'll take a paper towel. I do this with my hand, but I want to show you. And we're just going to get rid of these sort of dried up bits here, okay? That one's okay, that's fine. Now, we're going to add in a little shaving of Parmesan. We're also going to add our mozzarella cheese. Now, this is not fresh mozzarella, of course, as you can tell. It's the full fat mozzarella. Got a little bit of asparagus in there. And then our Parma ham. I add it last, and the reason for that is because I want it to cook the least. Okay, it is gonna get some heat, but Parma ham, in my opinion, should not be eaten, should not be cooked or anything like that. All right, and then we're going to add our spears, and they're going to hang out right about here. One here and here, and we'll adjust those in just a moment. Now, we need a plate, and we are going to adjust the way this is done here with a fork. All right, we're going to roll it in like this, and that's our omelet. We're now going to take the pan and invert it in this hand. All of this little stuff is irrelevant, and we're going to turn it over onto the plate. Now that we have this done, we're going to be very gentle because it is fragile, believe it or not. And we are going to arrange the asparagus so it comes out of the omelet. Get those other pieces just like this. There we go. We'll clean this up. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we're back. And here it is. It's time to taste. Oh boy, this is going to be fantastic. All of the things that make Emilia Romagna fantastic and fabulous are in this omelet. Of course, it's in the countryside, or most of it, except for Bologna, and even the little cities like Modena and Parma are very, very small. They could be considered country for all I'm concerned. I mean, I come from the big city, so when I see these smaller cities that they call cities, to me they're country, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying they're very, very small. Oh, my mouth is starting to water because I know it's coming. But the aceto balsamico, the Modena, the balsamic vinegar of Modena. Wow, what an incredible experience if you ever go there to try and to learn about balsamic vinegar and how it's supposed to taste. You've got to do that. The Parma ham, the Parmigiano-Reggiano, the food of Emilia Romagna is the best in Italy. That's what everything that Italy has to offer in its best is in Emilia Romagna with regard, of course, to food. So let's try this out. And the Parma ham and everything, believe it or not, is very inexpensive compared to out here. Wow. There is so much going on there. So many levels of flavor, from the crunch of the asparagus to the chewiness of the Parma ham, to the luscious, velvety texture of the inside of the eggs, and of course the richness of the cheese, and then the acidic element of the balsamic vinegar. It's one of these things it's out of this world. It's out of this world. Please, you have to try this. It doesn't get better. It really doesn't. This is a perfect brunch item. And everything's within your reach. Look, I'm going to eat the asparagus tips now. Tender, crunchy. Look. Get the real... Look, you saw that I added no salt in the eggs, okay? And what I said was the case. This doesn't need any salt at all. It is perfectly seasoned the way we did it. So please don't add salt to the eggs if you do this. Do exactly how I showed you, and you will have an experience. Wow. So good. So good, so good. Perfectly balanced too with the eggs and the meat and the vegetables. Anyway, don't watch me finish eating. Go into the kitchen, get this stuff, and make it. You're going to love it. Please like, subscribe, thumbs up, hit the bell button, tell your friends, share, and leave a comment if you like, okay? Thank you so much. Have a great day. Appreciate your time.